Picture this. It's 2025. A 64-year-old man is alone in a hotel room in Nashville, Tennessee. He's just finished a long stretch of ministry work, concerts, sermons, recordings, the kind of schedule that would exhaust someone half his age. Then his chest caves in. He can't breathe. He can't speak. He can't call out for help. And in that terrifying silence, this Grammy Award-winning gospel legend does the only thing he physically can. He gets down on his hands and knees and crawls to the hotel elevator. In the ambulance that follows, his heart stops. Not once, not twice. 3 times. 3 times paramedics pressed the defibrillator paddles to his chest. 3 times they brought him back. Now here's what makes this story even more extraordinary. This wasn't the first time Donnie McClurkin had stared death directly in the face. It wasn't the second. It wasn't even the third. This man has been fighting for his life since before most of us ever heard his name. And every single time, he has gotten back up. Today we are going deep into the untold health battles of Donnie McClurkin. We're talking leukemia, car crashes, cancer scares, a failing heart, and the faith that has carried him through all of it. Whether you're a gospel fan, a believer, or you just know what it means to fight through something that should have broken you, this story is for you. Stay with me. This one matters. Before we can understand why Donnie McClurkin's health battles hit so hard, you have to understand where this man came from. Because the truth is, surviving wasn't something he learned in a hospital bed. It was something he learned as a child. Donnie McClurkin was born on November the 9th, 1959 in Copiague, New York, a working-class community on Long Island. His home was not a sanctuary. His father, Donald McClurkin Sr., was absent in the ways that mattered most. Domestic violence was a reality. 2 of his sisters would later battle substance abuse. This was not a peaceful childhood. But then there was the church, and then there was music. Donnie found his refuge in both. An aunt who sang background vocals with the legendary Andrei Crouch introduced him to gospel music early, and from that moment, something clicked. He started playing piano for the youth choir. As a teenager, he formed the McClurkin Singers, a group featuring 4 of his sisters and 4 of their friends. He wasn't just talented, he was driven, he was hungry. But life had more wounds planned for him. At just 8 years old, Donnie was sexually abused, a trauma so deep he would carry it in silence for decades. He has spoken openly about this in interviews, connecting his spiritual journey and musical ministry directly to that pain. He didn't just sing about healing, he needed it. In 1983, at a gospel workshop seminar, a chance meeting changed the trajectory of his life. He met Reverend Marvin L. Winans, one of the most respected names in gospel history. Winans was impressed, and 6 years later, in 1989, Donnie made the move to Detroit to serve as an associate minister at Winans' Perfecting Church. He was finally in the right place. He was finally building something. And then his body turned on him. The year is 1991. Donnie McClurkin is 31 years old, working in Detroit, building his ministry, pouring everything into the church. Then come the symptoms: sharp, stabbing pain, severe swelling, internal bleeding. He is passing blood. Something is very wrong. Doctors run a bone marrow test and come back with a diagnosis that stops the room. Acute leukemia, blood cancer, and not the kind you wait on. His physician urged him to begin chemotherapy immediately. Now let that land for a second. Here is a 31-year-old man who has already survived childhood trauma, who is just beginning to find his footing in the world, who has a voice the gospel community is starting to notice. And he is being told he might be dying. Most people in that situation start the chemo. Donnie McClurkin said no. He has been very open about this decision in interviews. He said he was afraid. He admitted later that he let, in his own words, facts interfere with faith. But he and Reverend Winans prayed together. The Winans family prayed over him. And he stood on his belief that God could do something medicine could not. About a month later, Donnie went back to the doctors. They ran the tests again. They found no trace of leukemia in his body. None. His symptoms continued for another 2 months, but the doctors could find no medical explanation for what had happened or why it had stopped. Donnie McClurkin has called that moment the clearest proof of his faith he has ever received. He said God was showing him that facts don't always tell the whole story, And in a strange twist, the leukemia left something behind. A note from encyclopedia.com reports that doctors believed the disease had permanently damaged his tenor voice. McClurkin was given vocal exercises to attempt to restore what was lost. Just think about that. A gospel singer's voice, his very instrument, his calling, damaged by the illness he survived. And he came back and sang anyway, louder than ever. By 1996, he signed his first solo deal with Warner Alliance Records. By 2000, his live album had sold nearly double platinum. His songs Stand, We Fall Down, and Speak to My Heart were filling churches, filling arenas, filling the hearts of millions of people who needed to hear that somebody else had been through something and made it out the other side. Fast forward to early 2018. By now, Donnie is in his late 50s, a certified gospel legend with 3 Grammy Awards, 10 Stellar Awards, 2 BET Awards, and over 13 million album sales worldwide. He has performed at the White House under both George Bush and Bill Clinton. He has been ordained as a pastor. He has built Perfecting Faith Church in Freeport, New York, from a small Bible study group to a congregation of over 3,000 members. And then his voice, the very thing that started all of this, begins to fail him. Donnie begins cancelling performances. No announcement, no explanation, just shows disappearing from the schedule. Naturally, the gospel community starts to worry. Rumours begin to swirl. He finally breaks his silence and addresses it directly. He needed emergency throat surgery. And in the kind of grace that only Donnie McClurkin can deliver, he clarifies, it is not throat cancer. It is the removal of precancerous scar tissue from his vocal cords. Precancerous, meaning caught just in time. Think about what that means for a man whose entire ministry, or his whole life's work, lives in his throat. This isn't just a health scare. It is an existential threat to who he is and what he does. And yet, he heals. He recovers. He gets back on stage. You might be starting to see a pattern here. December 2018. Same year as the throat surgery. The man had barely finished recovering when life came for him again. Donnie McClurkin is driving on a highway. We don't know exactly where. We don't know what he was thinking about. What we know is that without warning, he loses consciousness completely and passes out behind the wheel. His vehicle begins to swerve at a heavy piece of metal moving at highway speed with no one in control. The car is totaled. Somehow, 2 other motorists on the highway see what is happening. They use their emergency blinkers to slow down and steer traffic away from his swerving vehicle. They created a human barrier between Donnie McClurkin and what should have been a catastrophic, fatal collision. He survives with only minor injuries. Minor injuries. When you look at his health history, you understand why this man's congregation calls him a walking testimony. He passed out going full speed on a highway, his car was destroyed, and he walked away. You can call that luck if you want. Donnie calls it something else entirely. Later, there would be discussion about whether the type 2 diabetes he has managed for years may have contributed to that loss of consciousness. We don't know for certain, but the chronic, compounding nature of his health issues was starting to tell a story, and so we arrive at late 2025. Donnie McClurkin has just finished recording what he calls his farewell album, a project he has titled, Finally, Donnie McClurkin. He has already told close friends and family he is stepping back from recording. He knows his body is speaking to him. He is 64 years old, managing diabetes, managing the aftermath of decades of vocal strain, managing the relentless schedule of a pastor and performer who has never really stopped. He even joked in a radio interview, speaking with Erica Campbell on Get Up Mornings, that after finishing the album and then suffering the heart attack, he looked up and asked God, "Lord, is this what you meant by finally?" That line tells you everything you need to know about this man. The heart attack happens in Nashville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. He is alone in a hotel room. The chest pain hits, the congestive heart failure begins, and in an instant, he cannot breathe. He cannot scream. He cannot call out, so he does the only thing he can. He gets on the floor. And he crawls. He crawls to that elevator, gets help, and emergency services are called. In the ambulance, his heart stops. The first time, they bring him back. His heart stops again. They bring him back again. And then a third time. 3 times Donnie McClurkin's heart stopped. 3 times paramedics used a defibrillator to bring him back to life. He flatlined. multiple times, in an ambulance, far from home. He was rushed to the hospital and placed on a ventilator, intubated, on life support. His body had finally reached the edge of what it could take. His overseas engagements were cancelled. The highly anticipated Gospel Goes classical concert series in South Africa, gone. His pastoral duties at Perfecting Faith Church, paused. His entire world put on hold while the man fought for every single breath. And more than 2 months later, more than 2 months of recovery, of healing, of what can only be described as a second life handed back to him, Donnie McClurkin returned to his pulpit. He stood before his congregation and gave a testimony. Not a sanitized, everything is fine testimony. A real one. He talked about crawling through that hotel hallway. He talked about the ambulance. He talked about the 3 times his heart stopped. He talked about a God who, in his words, wasn't done with him yet. And that congregation? They wept. Here is what I want you to understand about Donnie McClurkin's decision to step away from recording. This wasn't a defeat. This was wisdom. The man has leukemia survive in his past. He has a totaled car on a highway in his past. He has precancerous tissue removed from his throat in his past. He manages type 2 diabetes every single day. And now, a triple cardiac event, 3 flatline, in his most recent chapter. His final album, Finally, Donnie McClurkin, is not about an ending. It's about a monument. He said himself, "I want this project to be the crown on my music ministry. I want it to stand as a monument to God. This is my Ebenezer, a reminder that hitherto has the Lord helped me." His Ebenezer. That's a biblical term from the book of Samuel that means stone of help. It was a marker set up after a great victory to say, this is where God came through. This is where the impossible became possible. Donnie McClurkin's entire life is an Ebenezer. His new single, Better After While and Smile, released ahead of the Farewell album, carries a message that sounds autobiographical. No matter how the struggle looks, it's going to get better, after a while. He didn't write that from a comfortable place. He wrote it from a man who has genuinely wondered if he would live through the night. The gospel legend Erica Campbell, who featured him on her show, was visibly moved. She talked about how his song Stand gave her strength during one of the hardest seasons of her life. That is the reach this man has. His pain became other people's survival anthem. And now, at 64, having survived everything we've just walked through together, he stands in that pulpit. Not as a perfect man, not without scars, not without questions, but as a living, breathing, walking answer to the song he wrote on an airplane one day. You fell down, but you got up. You stood. So here's what I want to leave you with. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever has knocked the breath out of you, whatever has made your heart feel like it stopped, Donnie McClurkin's story says something to all of us. It says, the story isn't over yet. The man survived leukemia without chemotherapy. He survived an unconscious highway crash. He survived cancer threatening his voice. And then he survived his own heart stopping 3 times, in an ambulance in Nashville, Tennessee, and he crawled back to the pulpit. You can take from this story what you will. You can see the hand of God. You can see extraordinary resilience. You can see a human being who simply refuses to quit. Maybe it's all 3, but I think when we watch someone like Donnie McClurkin, someone who has been knocked down over and over and somehow finds the strength to rise, it reminds us of what we are capable of. It reminds us that survival is not an accident. It is a choice made again and again, even when your body is betraying you and the odds are stacked against you. Donnie McClurkin has been standing for a long time. He's not done yet. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear that they can keep going. Drop a comment below. Tell me about a time you had to stand when you had nothing left. I'd love to hear your story. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover stories like this all the time. I'll see you in the next one.